In this video, we will learn how to digitize our scouting data using a program called Microsoft Access. Porting over our scouting data into a database like this is the first step towards analyzing what the scouting data is telling us. By the end of this video, we will have built a database and an input form like the one you see here. After the video is over, check out the accompanying PDF documents that go in depth with advanced features like error checking that we can use to improve this database. For the purposes of this video, the way we collect scouting data will be called a scouting sheet. Here's one from the 2013 season. These boxes are called fields. Each field shows the count of a robot's action, a rating, or a location. On this sheet, scouts copied over their tallies and finalized them as numbers over here. Making a scouting sheet is a good idea because it ensures that all of your scouts collect the same type of data in the same way. Although your team may use something different, the same basic principles remain. Look on Chief Delphi for examples of other teams' scouting sheets for inspiration. The design of these sheets changes from team to team depending on which aspects of robot performance they care about and how many people they can spare to scout. Many of these sheets are designed in Microsoft Publisher, another program in the Microsoft suite. Let's start working on setting up our database. First, let's create a new database. An Access database is a combination of the tables that will store our data and the forms we use to enter data into it. This is an Access table. Each column holds a field from our scouting sheets. If we want to store a field in Access, we have to make a column to hold it in. To create a new column, click on the top of the column to add it. As you can see, there are several options for what type of data we can store in this column. As most of the data we are collecting is numeric, we should use number unless we are collecting text or if it is a checkbox field. After we pick our data type, name the field after its corresponding field in the scouting sheet, in this case, match. After we've created our field, select the default value button and set the default value to 0. We should do this because it saves time for entry and it reduces the number of blank values in our database. Blank values are also known as null values and are significantly different from something like 0. Null values dirty up our database because they're not a definite number. Later, when we start doing calculations with these fields, a null value will make our calculations break. Once we get our data into Tableau, this simple step allows us to avoid doing less of our error checking there. To create another column, repeat the process. Let's take a look at what our database will look like once all the columns are created. Our completed form now has a column for every field in our scouting sheet. Notice that we've separated the coordinates for shooting location into X and Y columns. We do this so we can more easily graph shooting location later on. Also, I didn't set the default value to 0 because if a team doesn't shoot in the match, we don't want them to have a shooting location. Also, the names of the field show from which period of the game the column represents. We do this because later on, it makes combining our data easier. In its current state, entering data into our Access database isn't much different from entering data into Excel. However, we can create a form to speed up and simplify our entry process. Let's make one now. Go to the Create tab and select Form. Microsoft Access automatically generates a form for us based off of how we have set up our columns. Forms streamline our data entry process by allowing our scouts to enter data continuously without lifting their hands up from the keyboard. This also reduces the number of typos. Entering data into a form is a very simple process. First, switch to Form View. We can now enter data into our database. ID should already be highlighted, so press Enter to move to the next box. Enter data into each box and then press Enter to move to the next one. Checkboxes can be checked or unchecked by using the plus and minus buttons. After the last field has been entered, Access will automatically enter the record and bring us a fresh sheet. To overwrite old data, use the arrows down here to go back to previous entries. To avoid overwriting our old data on accident, make sure the ID field says new until we enter data. To jump to a new sheet, click this button down here. Input forms are amazing for entering data because they reduce the chances of the person entering data into the wrong spot. Also, it's very unlikely that someone entering data could mess up the database architecture. Once we enter a record into our input form, it gets automatically sent to our table. If we can't see it, try refreshing the table. Now we can see our most recent entry. After we've been entering data for a while, our database will start to look more like this. Notice that there aren't any null values anywhere. This is what we're aiming for. Another interesting thing is that the same process that we have used to make a database for our match data also works to make a database for our pit scouting data. Now we have created a simple and a fast way to enter our scouting data into our computers. Entering our data into Access is very smooth and easy if we want it to be, but if we had a need, Access has many advanced options that can help us customize and error check our data. Some of these features are covered in the accompanying PDFs. If you don't want to use Access for data entry, this isn't a problem. Tableau can just as easily connect to an Excel sheet or any type of database your team may use. These simple steps are all we have to do before we can start to analyze our data. For the rest of the series, we will be focusing on making graphs and views using a program called Tableau. Thank you.